love that intro so much. It makes me so happy. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Explain Like I'm Five. I am Susan. I am, half of this channel. Behind me, we actually have Nathaniel behind me today. So everybody say hi to Nathaniel. Hi, Nathaniel. So with me today, my guest is the fantastic and wonderful Mandisa Thomas. Mandisa, how are you?
Hi, I am doing fine. Thank you for having me. Actually, I just came back from an amazing brunch for my husband's birthday. So don't mind me if I'm sleeping for half of this broadcast, but no, but it was I just had some of the best salmon croquettes I've ever had in my life.
Oh, nice.
And oh my gosh, it was so good. So yeah, I'm feeling really good right now.
Nice. I just finished a cup of coffee because it's only noon here because we're West Coast.
Yes.
So it's only noon. I might have another cup of coffee later. I don't know. I'm debating.
Yeah,
Debating.
now coffee drinkers kill me. My daughter is an avid coffee drinker.
Mhm.
And so, just the way I tease coffee drinkers about how they just cannot absolutely not function until they have coffee.
It's true. It is very true. Like
It's
coffee,
hilarious to me.
coffee and Concerta. That's like what I run on.
Oh, wow.
Coffee and my ADHD meds.
Mm,
That's what gets me through the day. So yeah. So when we were sort of discussing what you wanted to talk about today, and we
yes.
sort of threw out the general topic of movies, but there was one in particular that you wanted to talk about.
Yes. So I'm gonna date myself here. I'm 44, and
Mhm,
so I am a 70s/80s baby.
mhm.
And recently, I posted on Facebook too about how I have this habit of watching movies that just come in my head, and I will rewatch them until they kind of run their course, and then I may watch something else. But this cycle belongs to The Lost Boys.
Mhm.
That is a classic 80s vampire movie.
Mhm.
And I think for in my opinion, it was like the best vampire movie or I guess modern vampire movie since Fright Night that had debuted a few years before that, with Chris
Right.
Sarandon,
Mhm.
the original Fright Night.
Yeah. Not the
And
David
of the
Fincher
80s.
remake.
Right, yes,
Yeah.
right. So it was, if you've and I know you said you had never seen it, but it
Mhm.
is basically like a cult classic. And I think you will love it because, especially judging from the intro movie, I
Mhm.
think you would really, really like the music that's in it.
Ooh.
And you would be able to appreciate also the hilarity of the 80s,
Mhm.
with the big hair and, just the it was still sort of hippy dippy back then too, but
Mhm.
it's just this, the movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers for anyone who has never seen it, and for anyone watching, if you have seen it, don't spoil it for anyone. But that has been my movie that has been in rotation now for probably about a week or so,
Nice.
because I mean it has been a favorite ever since I first watched it.
Mhm.
And every time I see it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just absolutely love this movie. And it breaks away from all of the other, vampire stereotypes. It kind of deviates from that a bit. They're more modern, they're in this sort of day and age a bit, or in that day and age. But it was still, it still definitely had those classic horror elements that I think, even for someone who hasn't seen it, you can appreciate the suspense in it, as
Right.
well as, like I said before, the comedy as well.
Mhm.
And I just, yeah, it's just it's one of my top favorite movies of all time.
Nice. So I
I
know
just,
it's from what I understand, because I do I basically know like the things that you have said so far. It's sort of like, oh,
mm-hmm.
okay, like I sort of know the gist of it and stuff. But so I know it's got Kiefer Sutherland,
Uh-huh.
but who else is in it? Because I don't entirely know.
So, one of the other principal actors is Jason Patrick. I mean, he's been in a few things. And actually, the two Coreys, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman,
Oh, it's
are
one of
in the
theirs.
movie as
Okay.
well. Yes, this
Yeah.
is one of their movies. I think it was
Mhm.
the first one they did together. And
Nice.
then from there, it just started that whole two Coreys thing with
Mhm.
them pairing and such. I think this movie was released in 86 or 87.
Mhm.
So yeah, it started that. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
think it
those,
was I'm wanting to say it was probably 86. I
yeah.
think it was because I was to date myself a little bit. I'm a January 87 baby. So
Oh,
I think it was
okay.
like right before I
Wow,
was
so the movie is
born.
just about as old as you.
Yeah.
Right. Y'all are about the same age.
It's like it's 34 years old at this point because I
Yes.
turned 34 in a few weeks. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Kiefer Sutherland definitely made that movie. I mean,
yeah.
like he was one of the characters who made the movie for sure.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, it was just, yes, it was, I mean, I grew up in New York.
Mhm.
And so as an East Coast person, with it being based in like California, it's just interesting to see that, that culture, and whatnot. And so, but yeah, it was just, yeah, it is a fantastic movie. Joel Schumacher directed it.
Oh, and he did how many of the
Batman.
Batmans did he do? Did
Yes,
he just
he
do a couple
did.
of them?
I think he did the first three with Michael Keaton.
Mhm.
Um, I know he did the first one for sure. And
Mhm.
definitely like I don't think he did the new installment with Christian Bale, but definitely with Michael Keaton in the late 80s. He
Yeah.
did those installments and those were fantastic.
Yeah, oh yeah, those were good. Those were good. So Russ, frustrated atheist, hey Russ, is asking which movie we're talking about. We're talking about The Lost Boys. So which
Please
as
give your thumbs up if you remember it, if you enjoyed it, all of that. We
yes.
can kinda
Yeah. And so I've always really enjoyed like the horror comedy stuff.
Yes.
So I had really loved Cabin in the Woods.
I've heard of that movie. I have never seen it though.
Yeah, it's Joss Whedon.
Okay,
And
okay, yeah.
so sort of I'm gonna sort of go into that in a second, but
Yeah.
it's very much like it is a horror comedy thing. There's a lot of stuff that it's very sort of classically Whedon. So if you've watched stuff like Buffy and Angel and stuff like that,
Yes.
then you're sort of like you know what you're expecting. I mean,
Right.
The Avengers was so not Whedon like in the slightest.
Right, right, yes.
But yeah, so like the horror comedy stuff I really like because it is sort of that, you what are you
Yeah,
expecting? Like which one
right.
are you gonna
And I
yeah.
remember other, horror comedies from the 80s, like Once Bitten, when Jim Carrey was way in his like acting infancy.
Like the In
And
Living Color days?
oh, before the In Living Color
Oh
days.
my
And he
gosh.
was actually the main star, but yeah, this is like, oh yeah, this was before In Living Color.
Oh my gosh, you were
Yeah,
such
it's a
a baby
horror
then.
movie called Once Bitten. And
Mhm.
it's more comedy than horror. But then also the original movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer to actually,
Yeah.
and that was pretty funny too. I
Yeah.
remember that. And
Yeah.
that was pretty, and it was ironic because Donald Sutherland, Kiefer's father, played in that.
Right.
So
Yeah. Oh god, I haven't seen the Buffy movie in
yeah,
forever.
it's been a while for me too, but yeah, I remember that one was good too.
And it's so different from the show. Because I mean, the movie is like a little bit more horror than the show. The show is that horror comedy thing.
Right, right.
Um, and I think I think probably, I mean, I haven't seen him actually say this, but I would imagine that Joss Whedon probably got a lot of his inspiration for, Buffy the movie and Buffy the show and that sort of dynamic between characters and stuff. He probably took a lot of that inspiration from The Lost Boys.
I mean, I could imagine, like, if you see it now, and
Mhm.
then if you probably see other things, like I saw this one movie on Netflix called Vampires in the Bronx. I thought it was pretty interesting
Mhm.
storyline. It wraps in like gentrification up in New York and how it ties into, people of color when they go missing, no one really gives a shit about them.
Right.
But there was an element of that movie like that clearly rips from the Lost Boys, clearly. And I'm not going to say what it is, but for those who have ever watched the Lost Boys and you watch this movie, which is still on Netflix, you're like, oh shit, they took that right from that movie.
Just straight up lifted it.
Straight ripped it. I'm
Oh, that's
like, holy
funny.
shit.
I mean, and there's a difference between like doing like paying homage to certain stuff and then,
Right.
just straight up ripping it off. Like
Yeah.
there's such
I
a
mean, I thought it was
difference.
cute the way they did it, but I was
Yeah.
just like, okay, so this must be I mean, it was pretty influential
Mhm.
for that, like that horror comedy, genre, that mix. So yes, it was one of those iconic films that came from the 80s that if you're really into like the vampire
Mhm.
genre, you can see where they kind of, they kind of took from that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I imagine it was like the vampires in that movie, because vampires have sort of, well, vampires and, just sort of horror movies and horror antagonists in most cases have sort of evolved as the years have gone on.
Yes, they have.
So like we've seen the vampires and shit like oh, well, there's the first curse word that I've dropped so far. So I'm gonna drop I'm gonna drop an F-bomb soon. We're not monetized, so it's totally fine. But specifically, with like zombies started out as like slow and lumbering and stuff, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
during the more sort of recent stuff, sometimes they're slow and lumbering, but sometimes they're like
Pretty
running as fast as they can at you. And it's like that's
yeah. The zombie drama, the zombie genre though, like Night of the Living Dead, I don't care how many of them I see. They always frustrate me to no end. They kind of do, because there isn't much dialogue with the zombies, and so I just think it just seems like it's gory than anything else.
yeah.
And so I mean, The Walking Dead, I can appreciate that people enjoyed it, but after a while I'm just like, yeah, no.
There's only so much of that I can watch, because after a little while it's sort of like, I mean, all it really, I don't enjoy like so much personal drama. Like there's a certain amount of it that I'll sort of watch, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of like watching Facebook drama from the outside looking in that you're not directly involved in.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah, I see that quite a bit. Yes.
It's like, oh, this is interesting, but after a little while, it's just like I don't have the emotional energy to watch this anymore. Like it's
Not at all.
Sometimes it's like a train wreck, and you just can't look away, but not in that case. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, if what would you say? Would you say like Lost Boys was the first like real sort of horror comedy that you had really watched, or how did that sort of?
I wouldn't say that, because I do think that Fright Night, even though it was more horror than anything else, it definitely had like its comedy moments.
Mm-hmm.
And but I would say that it was one of the more innovative.
Mm-hmm.
The Lost Boys was,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think there were some instances where it wasn't even supposed to be funny, but it just was.
Yeah, just an unintentional funny.
Yes, yes. But I think it was, at that time, it was definitely one of the more innovative and one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
If I do say so.
Ooh, I'm wondering what was around that time that would have been like just really bad. Like, I wonder how many copycats they had, like in the wake of that, and the wake of the release of the movie.
Well, it was so popular that they went on to do 2 sequels, and apparently they were not as good as I have never seen them, and they were not as good as the first. So I'm like, okay, well, I
Was
think I
it?
can skip that now.
Yeah, like usually that's how it is for sequels anyway. Like usually
Yeah.
it's like I don't think I want to watch this, and this is coming from somebody who has Star Wars Funko Pops from 9 different, at
Right.
least, no, probably like 11 different Star Wars movies
Right. I
on
think
her
that is
wall.
just one genre that is gonna just have a loyal fan base for, like, probably until the earth blows up.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, like,
Oh yeah.
seriously.
Just like Alderaan.
Yes.
um because mild tangent, I watched the Mandalorian finale last night and it was amazing. I don't know if you
Okay.
watched the Mandalorian. It's really good.
Yeah, no, I haven't. We don't have Disney Plus, and,
Mhm.
I was just mainly a Return of the Jedi fan.
Thank
Back
you.
in back when it came out. So I got some of like the Star Wars stuff. Spaceballs, of course, is one of my movies because I love parodies of stuff too.
Mhm.
So yes, I absolutely love it. But yeah, Return of the Jedi is my favorite out of the Star Wars movies.
So
So
I used to host a podcast or co-host a podcast called Atheist Airwaves back when I was living in Corpus Christi and down in South Texas. This was, oh God, a good 6 years ago when I moved from Corpus to Austin, and I got in not a screaming match, but a very, very passionate argument with one of my co-hosts about the merits of Return of the Jedi versus the merits of Empire Strikes Back.
yes.
And I was just all like, I don't care. Return of the Jedi is still my favorite of the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
And Christian's all like, Ewoks are terrible. Why do you like that movie? And I'm just
No,
all
they're
like,
so furry and cuddly. I mean, my goodness, what was they were awesome.
yes. I mean, it was a blatant cash grab, blatant, because they wanted to see how much merchandise they could get out of it.
Right.
But
And it worked.
yeah,
It worked though.
like I have just Ewoks alone. I'm just like I'm just gonna watch Jedi for the Ewoks, and that's my movie that I'm just like I can watch this over and over and over. I don't need to. I mean, I do like to watch, from 1 to 9 and sort of go in order,
Yeah.
or eventually like machete order, or whatever it's called. Where it's that certain order where you watch them like
Like
fuck, I don't even.
constantly, right. You may
Yeah,
watch it for like a month straight, then you might not watch it for maybe a year or two.
yeah.
Yeah. But when you do, you binge it.
Exactly. And the thing that I really like about Disney Plus, it's definitely because I think we get it free through our cell phone through Verizon.
Okay.
Um and they have like everything Star Wars, including Clone Wars.
Nice.
So
Okay. Interesting.
it's legit. It's legit. Um so would you say, sort of going back to the actual the actual topic at hand, instead of, because I can talk about Star Wars for a very long time,
Right.
and this is not about me.
No, that's fine.
um would you, so I know you're saying, you really, really love Lost Boys.
hmm
What would you say, like what other movies have you sort of done this with fairly recently? Like just
Yeah.
binge them for, like ages at a time.
So one of the movies I was watching recently, like maybe a month or two ago, was In and Out with Kevin Kline.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, that is another favorite movie of mine as well.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Also, the Babysitter 2 on Netflix.
Mhm.
I don't know if you they made the first one 2 years ago, which I actually watched it by accident, and I just loved it. And then they came out with the most recent one this year.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because it mixes a lot of more 80s culture and a lot of hip hop in there too, which is one of my favorite genres ever.
Nice.
And so it mixes a lot of that with just, it's like these hippie dippy, like these white kids who are, they're sort of into like the old 80s stuff. And
Mhm.
it isn't just about hip hop, but it's like all over, it spans all over the place.
Mhm.
And it is interesting to see how those come back around,
Mhm.
like after certain generations. So that I was binging that. Actually, I've been watching a lot of the Quincy Jones documentary on Netflix as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, such an iconic musician.
Mhm.
So I find myself watching that documentary quite a bit.
Yeah.
Other movies do, and I tend to like, especially during my downtime. I'm also into the Problem Child movies, Problem Child 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh, I
I've
forgot
watched
about
those
those.
too. My kids tease me there all day. They're like, "Oh, mom, why are you watching this? You're old." They say that to me all the time.
I
But
forgot
yes,
about those.
I've been watching those as well. I mean, yeah, because to me they're just hilarious.
Yeah.
They're funny. They're just like ridiculous comedy, but you just can't help but watch it because it's just it really is funny.
Yeah, and it's sort of like a security blanket a little bit where it's like
Yeah.
you know what you're and I'm that's probably how it is with any of these. It's what you're watching. There's not going to be any like rude surprises or anything, any twist endings you're not
Yes.
expecting. So it's like
Right.
I know what I'm getting into. I know I know what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna be all like, ah, well shit, that just ruined the movie.
Right. And then the
Like it's
80s movies are just so much fun. 80s,
right.
early 90s. I mean, a lot of them are just so much they're just so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I don't mind stepping back into that time period and just kind of, and just enjoying that. Every moment wasn't meant to be so goddamn serious.
Right.
So I absolutely love watching those movies, especially to decompress because we need those laughs, and a
Mhm.
lot of the 80s movies provided a lot of that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with enjoying them over and over again.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, I sort of did the whole well, I mean, and this is probably I don't know how many years ago this was. Excuse me. I sort of did, this like binge watch it for a while and then never watch it again for a long
Yeah.
time sort of thing with Clueless.
Oh my gosh, yes, that was on Netflix not too long ago as well. And I was rewatching that too. Yes.
That that's just because that came out in 95.
Yeah.
So everything's so 90s.
Yes.
And it's California girls, so it's like Lost Boys. It's this culture that you don't know a lot about because I'm from fucking Texas. We don't
Right.
we
We
don't have
don't know what it is to just be like so fancy free in this nice weather. I mean, especially me being from New York, coming from snow. I'm just like, yeah, I don't it's interesting to see like these portrayals of these entitled spoiled rich kids.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, but it's kind of fun. It's also fun to watch to see how kind of dense they are and also coming to that realization. Do you know the director of Clueless also directed Look Who's Talking? I think she did the first and second one.
Oh,
And she also did Saturday Night Fever with
really?
with John Travolta. Yeah, Amy Heckerling is her name.
There
Yep.
we go. Yeah, because I knew it was a woman that directed Clueless, but I couldn't remember her name. So thank you.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome. Talk
it's
about useless trivia information, even though it isn't useless, but like interesting trivia.
that's perfect because I used to host a weekly pub quiz called Geeks Who Drink,
Mhm.
and I hosted that every single week. I did that for like 5 years, so I am filled with random useless knowledge as well.
Nice.
So I appreciate that a great deal. Like that I feel that on a very deep level. Um,
Good, good, yes.
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Look Who's Talking because for some reason, and I guess it's because I think they all came out around the same time. I always associate Look Who's Talking, the Problem Child movies,
Yes,
and Kindergarten Cop.
that's another one I've been watching too. I love Schwarzenegger when he does comedy. I
Mhm.
really, really do. I mean, he's so deadpan, but he's still funny.
He plays this straight man really, really well. Like
Yes,
he's so good. Have you
yes.
have you watched Jingle All the Way yet this season?
I have not seen that in years, and I
Mhm.
probably should because I remember that he was in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't seen that in so long, and I probably should. But yes,
There you go.
but yes, I do love I love Schwarzenegger when he does comedy.
Yeah,
I I
now I
like
wanna watch that.
Twins with Danny DeVito. I did like that.
Oh,
Um,
man. All this stuff is, like, stuff that I
it takes you back,
remember.
yes.
Yeah, 'cause I spend so much time either concentrating on, like, YouTube stuff or Star Wars or work, and it's just like, "Oh my gosh," like, I remember all of this stuff, and I remember, like, growing up with, you know, seeing these movies come out and then actually, like, watching them, but then again, I mean, my parents didn't really they weren't the kind of parents that were like, "Oh, no, you can't watch this, you're too young for it,"
Right.
which that's why I think I watched The Producers and, Blazing Saddles when I was, like,
Ooh, we getting into
9.
some movies there.
I was, like, 9 or 10 when I saw those
Ooh,
movies,
yes, yes.
and then I think I watched Rocky Horror when I was, like, 11 or 12.
Interesting. I still have yet to see Rocky Horror in its entirety, and I love Tim Curry. I really
Mhm.
do. I like him as an actor, and I've seen part of it. I know it's I don't know. I don't remember how long it is. Is it pretty lengthy, or
It's
is
not
it is it
s
standard?
No, it's about I think it's about an hour and a half.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then
Yeah,
that's not bad.
yeah.
Um, and I'll tell you something, even though like for me, I was raised in like a black conscious household, like everything,
Mhm,
all black everything, you weren't technically allowed to like almost like anything that was considered Eurocentric or white culture, but because we weren't raised religious, there were some things that we did, or my mother would allow me and my brothers to watch. And I remember the Lost Boys being among that. I
mhm,
remember Spaceballs. I remember all of these things and then some of the movies that I didn't see right off, I remember watching them later and I enjoyed them.
mhm,
So, but yeah, so there was a lot that like we were allowed to watch horror movies when we were kids.
mhm,
And we were, we saw all the, Halloweens and Jasons and, the Fright Nights and Night of Living Deads and stuff. So I remember growing up being able to, or at least having access to that,
mhm.
which was just great. Yesterday though, I watched Beverly Hills Cop for the first time in years, and
Oh,
Eddie
yeah.
Murphy, even with all of his stuff, is still one of my favorites. He's still one of my favorite comedians. I mean, he's funny as hell. But,
Yes.
yeah, I just watched that. Yeah, I just watched that the other day, and that brings me to Coming to America, which is also another
That
favorite.
movie so much, I love that
Oh my
movie.
gosh, yes, and they're about to
Oh,
come out with the sequel very soon.
oh,
They're coming
yeah.
out with the Coming to America 2, and so, of course, we'll need to watch that
Oh,
because
yeah.
that will just take us back. I mean, we're talking almost 30 years now since the
Yeah.
first one was released.
Yeah.
So,
I'm trying to
yeah.
remember when I first saw that because I didn't see that when I was, like, super young, but I think I saw that I think it was probably, like, 19 or 20.
Oh
So I
my
was,
god, you
I was
saw that
already,
when
like,
it
an
came out. My
adult.
mother took us to the movies to see that.
Nice.
And speaking of horror comedy, I don't know if you ever saw Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie
No!
Murphy. I mean,
I
it's
remember.
interesting. Wes
Mhm.
Craven was a director,
Yeah.
and I like, that's definitely talk about horror comedy, and
Mhm.
I guess I can appreciate how they try to like incorporate some, the storyline and such. It's just interesting, and he just looks so weird in that movie, but
Yeah.
it's he can't help but make something funny.
Right,
So
yeah. Like, it's just sort of I has he ever done any dramatic roles?
I think Dreamgirls. When he
Oh,
did Dream, now I have
yeah.
never seen that, but that was the first time he was ever nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, apparently, yeah, that role was one of his more serious roles.
Wow.
So
I
yeah.
forgot he was in that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
because,
all I
you
think about is, like, Jennifer Hudson.
right, and Beyonce. Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Jennifer Hudson is the one
Yes.
who really,
Yeah.
catapulted to stardom from that. And that's amazing. I think it was great that she did.
Mhm.
And that was, a remake of, the Broadway and the original
Yes.
film. But yeah, he was nominated for an Academy Award for his role in Dreamgirls.
Wow. Now I love musicals, so I'm surprised that I forgot that he was in that. Like, I did some
Yeah.
musical theater when I was in high school.
Oh,
Like, I
I
did.
went to a performing arts high school. So I
Nice.
know I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Nice. Nice. I was in Jesus Christ Superstar, like, a
Ugh,
local
I've never
production
had
of
to do
that one.
that.
Oh, it was oh my gosh. So they did these, like, the show must go, like, it was right around the time that people were, like, starting to take coronavirus really seriously, and
Uh-huh.
there was this YouTube channel that was releasing, like, filmed versions of musicals, and they had,
Oh,
like,
okay.
they had one of Phantom. I don't remember, like, all the ones that they had. They had some ones that I wasn't terribly familiar with, but I watched the Phantom one, and they had a Jesus Christ Superstar one with Tim Minchin as Judas, which
Oh, I
made
bet that was awesome.
it was amazing. It made me laugh so hard because I was like, I think it was like 2012, I think.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't familiar with him until about a couple of years after that, like 2013, 2014. So I wasn't like,
Mhm.
at the time, I don't know if he was like super,
Yeah, I
like,
hadn't heard of him until I got involved with the secular community, or I hadn't recognized his music. And
mhm,
when I saw him play at the Reason rally, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's actually pretty cool." He did the FU song.
mhm.
So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah. He's just great. And I always knew he was a good singer, but I guess I
Yeah.
didn't realize, like, because that Judas role requires a really good range, like an amazing,
Mm.
like, very, very wide range. Um, and it's, oh my God, it was fantastic. And I don't know why because I think I saw the original, the movie Jesus Christ Superstar from like 1973 with Ted Neely in it. I saw that when I was a kid. I saw that in Godspell.
The only the only exposure I had to Jesus Christ Superstar was, now that I remember it, was during one of my girls chorus. We had a girls chorus that we had to take in my high school,
Mhm,
and the director had us, I guess, like, he had us warm up to one of those songs from there,
mhm,
and it was never the words. We were just singing the melody.
mhm.
So I was like, okay, he just said it was from Jesus Christ Superstar, and I was just like, okay, whatever. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but yeah, I never got into the Jesus Christ Superstar thing. I know, I think it was very popular,
Mhm.
but yeah, I just, anything that really had like Jesus in it that made it seem, I guess, anyway serious, I was like, ugh. But
Yeah, because there's certain moments like that, because it's lifted. I think it's lifted from like Mark and Matthew. I'm wanting to say. I think it is.
mm,
I think that was like where Andrew Lloyd Webber sort of got most of the inspiration for it and stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, so I really want to know, because I didn't know that you went to a performing arts high school. I did not
Uh-huh.
know that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite show that you've been in?
I and before I actually attended the High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts
Mhm,
behind Lincoln Center in Manhattan, and
mhm,
it's very world renowned. So one of the favorite things that I remember doing was, I played Belicio, I think that was the name, in The Marriage of Figaro. We did an opera production.
wow.
Basilio.
Mhm,
Basilio. Yes. But yeah, we did we put on the opera, we did the performance and everything.
Wow.
And that was one of the most favorite things that I ever did.
Nice.
Yeah, and we did musical theater. I wasn't in like any of the musical theater productions, but yes, I was in an opera production.
Mhm. Oh,
So
that's
that was pretty
cool.
cool. That was
That's
awesome.
really rad. Oh my gosh. I think
Yes.
I did a couple of melodramas at the Playhouse back home in Corpus, like, where it's just, the classic like villain and good guy, and they throw popcorn and shit like that. So I did the ones like that, but they're just goofy. So it's like those were just fun to do.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, in our school, they were taken very, very
Yeah.
seriously because, the premise was that once you graduated from there, you were either going to be a serious artist, a serious dancer, a serious uh, musical, like either instrumental or vocal or drama. And there
Mhm.
are a lot of noted drama majors that have gone on to do a lot of big things that have come from my high school.
Yeah.
So I think Al Pacino, for example, was a graduate of
Nice.
the school. And so yeah, there are quite a few noted and small note. Nicki Minaj is actually she's not from my generation, but she's actually from my old neighborhood and a graduate of the same school.
Oh, wow.
So for those who may not have known that,
That's cool.
yeah,
That's really cool. That's awesome. And that sort of goes to show, like, the kind of, not just the talent that they look for going in, but, like, the talent that they produce.
yes, yeah.
Like, they, like, refine and stuff.
It
That's
was
really
very, very serious. Yes,
yeah,
very serious.
that's really
And I
awesome.
mean, I'm glad to have had that experience to have attended that school, even though I don't sing as often as I used to. And
Mhm,
when I got involved with the community, I kind of found my voice again. But yeah, it was definitely good for like education on these things too.
mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I always sort of had wished that that I could do stuff like that. Like, I think that's why, like, I was in band for a little while, like in middle school, and did some of the theater stuff in high school. And I was always like, I want to do performing stuff when I grow up. And now I have a YouTube channel, so I guess that counts.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey,
I don't know.
if this year has taught us nothing else, and definitely times of social media, is that being able to make a career out of doing something on YouTube and stuff that we were never taught
Hmm.
growing up. If you didn't know back then that this was possible, now you do know that
Yeah.
there are plenty of different avenues outside of what is considered professional or respectable
Hmm.
to really make your mark and to really make a living off of it. And so yeah, I've never like looked down on any of it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's so many people that they do make their living off of it and stuff, and they put out great content and everything, and I'm just all like, that is like amazing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
always a little jealous of that, because I'm just like, sometimes I have like the hyper focus, but then I'm just
Yeah.
like, I can't quite focus
Right.
well. I don't know.
Now, I will tell you, getting back to the Lost Boys
Yes.
was that, and speaking of music, was that I have to tell you that there's this really, really funny part, or I mean, there are lots of funny parts, but there's this very musical part that almost doesn't even look like it belongs in the movie. And you're thinking, like, I found out recently that the guy who was a musician is actually a musician.
Oh, wow.
So, and he just looks like these really, really buffed, good-looking dudes. And I'm like, surely he does not know how to play that instrument. But apparently, in real life, that is the case. And I was like, holy shit. Holy crap. So
So he's like got his own career like outside of that.
yes,
Oh wow.
yeah, and actually had his own career as well. I was like, wow. So I'm like, talk about things that I didn't really know
Yeah.
about that movie as well. So because I just thought, well, they stuck this guy up here. He isn't really a singer. There's somebody else doing this. And there's somebody else playing this instrument. But it turns out that, that he's actually a real musician. I was like, oh shit.
Oh, that's awesome though.
And I can appreciate that. I can really appreciate because, the 80s were a very interesting mix of, different styles, but there was just still in many of these movies, this element of, what hot and sexy looked like and surely did, but they weren't really talented though. They were, they were just, they just looked good. But
Yeah.
there are other people on the back end. But I just thought that was a very interesting fact about that movie.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes. And those who have seen the movie know what I'm talking about.
Now I'm gonna like make sure that I keep an eye out to see like who exactly it is to see because I imagine at the time like if because I'm trying to think of was it sort of more along the lines of like the 80s hair metal that was sort of
Kind of, sort of, yes. It was spandex, spandex pants and everything. Absolutely.
full on
Yes.
face paint, face makeup?
Not quite. It
Not
was
quite.
just more of the glistening, glistening, greasy type of, but yes.
Was everything in the 80s so greasy? Like, I don't know.
Like I said, there was a mix. There's a lot of mullets, a lot of hairspray, long hair,
Mhm.
so in different colors. There was so much of that. I imagine that, a lot of, talk about hairspray, right? There were a lot of people who kept those hair product companies in business.
Right. One of my former coworkers, she had brought pictures of her, I think she graduated high school in like late 80s, early 90s or something, and she brought photos from her prom to work one actual physical photos, and she's all like, I've had this for so long, and I'm just all like, we had physical photos when I was a kid too. You're not that much older than I." But she hands me one and she's like, yeah, I basically kept Aquanet in business, and her bangs,
Well, they were on point.
they were legit. Like, just holy shit. I don't think even my length of hair could like achieve those bangs right now with just the hair. Oh my god.
When I was growing up, my hair was natural, and my mother was not about to let me get a jerry curl.
Mhm.
She was not letting me get a perm or relaxer or anything like that. I wore braids, and so like I was sort of envious of not the jerry curl, but the other styles that that my cousins and other girls in my neighborhood were able to do. But now I look and I'm like, how did y'all sleep in those? We're talking about, the curls, like some of the crimps and I mean, they're very amazingly, they're amazing styles. Like if you look at, especially black hair from back then, you're
Mhm.
like, holy shit. Like, how did y'all sleep in that?
Right.
Like seriously. Like, how did y'all do anything with those, with that hair? I'm just like, part of me was like, oh my gosh. And I did some things with my hair once I relaxed it and everything. But back then it was just like, how much time did y'all have to spend in the mirror to
Right.
get that shit just right?
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, we always they always talk about like, how much time like, white women spent in front of the mirror doing this shit, but it's like we've got white hair. like, like our hair is just sort of like, stick a crimper and then you're good and then you can just wash it out. It's like it's not
Right.
it's not it's just an entirely different sort of
Yeah. So
like it's just so different.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a different dynamic when it comes to, black hair, and then when you have biracial folks with mixed hair. And there was a biracial actress in The Lost Boys as well. She didn't have as big of a part as she did in some other movies at that time, but you know, a lot of, the black girls, especially out there in California, probably had their hair the same way as a lot similar to what the white girls were wearing.
Yeah.
So there was just this whole culture of, there being somewhat similar. And I think because to an extent, California is it's a bit more liberal, even though it's had its issues as well. But
Mhm.
you saw a lot of, the black girls out there having the same type of
Mhm.
hairstyles, and very similar, and definitely the mixed girls. So I mean, the 80s was just like, yeah, this big hair thing, just this, it was definitely one of interesting styles for sure.
I think it's kind of funny that we sort of like as a, pop culture, I feel like it's sort of because like you were saying earlier, it's it's cyclical. Like we come back to stuff after a certain amount of time.
Right, yes.
We sort of skipped a lot of the 80s stuff in it
Hmm.
and just went straight back to the 90s.
Yes, I see that. I see that a lot. And the guys aren't doing it
Mhm.
because, the guys had a lot of big hair in the 80s as well. We're talking about, Kiefer Sutherland had the mullet,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of that stuff. So that reminds me of Chappelle show when Charlie Murphy was saying that in the 80s you couldn't tell who was, like the men looked more like women than the men, because or they look more like women because they were wearing a lot of the same stuff,
Yeah, tight
so
pants, some
yes,
makeup, big hair. There was just the general, like, sort of the 80s template in
yes.
general. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and I mean, the 90s didn't really I mean, yeah, we had some of this, like, if you watch I think the most 90s thing, other than Clueless, the most 90s thing that you can watch is the Mickey Mouse Club of that era with like
That
Justin
was
Timberlake and Britney Spears and
I
Jason
had
Schizar.
never gotten into them. By that time, I was a teenager, and it was all about, hip hop culture,
Yeah,
for me. And
yeah,
so I grew up doing, and my mother wasn't about to get into those fads either. It's a lot of cross colors, a lot of, name brand stuff, lot of big colors within, hip hop at that time.
mhm,
And so, but yeah, I think for those who were probably born in the 80s, and who could remember that growing up, yeah, I think you're right for about that. There were
yeah.
some other aspects of the 90s that I thought were pretty interesting. Definitely me being more of an 80s person, um, I definitely appreciate it a lot more about that. But yeah, I think for the whole Mickey Mouse Club thing, I'm trying to remember some of these other shows too that were because I've never been, we grew up without cable for a
Mhm.
while. So we didn't know about the, Nickel. I had seen promos for Nickelodeon, but I had never had it, I'd never been able to watch it.
Yeah.
So I remember people talking about Ren and Stimpy, like
Mhm.
Beavis and Butthead, and I watched those shows later.
Yeah.
But yes,
I did that
I
with a lot of Disney shows because we didn't have like I didn't watch Mickey Mouse Club until I was probably oh god, how old was I? Probably about 15.
mm.
And because I was well, maybe a little earlier than that because I was like obsessed with NSYNC when I was like 13,
Right,
14,
a
15.
whole boy band craze.
Yes, like obsessed. And
You're like the white new edition of their time. New
yeah.
edition, Bobby Brown and you know, um, Ralph Tresvant. Yeah, they were.
Well, yeah, and oh gosh, what was the group that Ricky Martin was in?
Oh my gosh! It wasn't Menudo. No, yeah, it was
Yeah,
Menudo.
it was Menudo.
Yeah, Menudo.
Yeah,
Yep,
like
it was a Menudo.
it's all cyclical. It's,
Yep.
like you had New Edition and Menudo, and then you had NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys,
Yes, and I like some
now
of the
it's like
Backstreet
One
Boys
Direction.
music too. I remember liking some of their songs. I don't think I would ever admit that. I wouldn't have admitted that to anyone at the time, but some of their stuff was actually kind of cool.
Yeah. I remember seeing so my second concert, my first concert was Peter, Paul and Mary when I was like 8.
Wow.
My parents were like these big fucking hippies.
Right. That's what I was about to say.
And my mom will still admit to that. My mom
Were
still
they
just don't
at
like.
did they go to Woodstock too? Did they go to the first one?
No, my dad. See, I think my mom was like a junior in high school, and then my dad was like in college at the time. So they were like in Texas and shit. So, but
Oh,
they would
okay.
have. They would have.
Right.
Um, but my second concert ever was NSYNC on their celebrity tour.
Oh my gosh. That is funny.
And you know how there's like screaming girls jumping up and down with signs and stuff. Oh yeah, that's how we were. We made shirts. We had like glitter all over ourselves. It was like, oh my God. I look back on that and I'm just like, why? But then it's like,
I mean,
it was cool at the time, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't look back on it and think that I was cool, but
Right. But I mean,
well,
yeah. I mean, you can certainly laugh at it for sure. I mean, for the time, you could appreciate it as being fun and something that you enjoyed. And I don't think there's anything wrong with us sort of revisiting those days a bit and just kind of going back and enjoying them.
yeah,
It helps keep us grounded in a
sort of
way. Yeah.
like helps us remember like who we used to be and where we come from, and the journey we've been on.
Yes.
It's definitely been an interesting journey. Oh, and I forgot to do this really quick because poor Nathaniel, I don't think he has um admin privileges on our own
Oh no.
I don't think he has admin privileges on our own channel. I had forgotten to put this in the Oh, I'm sorry. He's like, no, I don't. You would send me the link to your Patreon, so I'm gonna
Yes.
I'm gonna put that in the description here in a little bit, but I wanted to put that in the chat before I forgot. There we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. So do you foresee that you're gonna be watching Lost Boys for a while, or do you think you're gonna move on to a different movie soon?
I'll be watching it for a while. Probably because I mean it is just one of the movies that like if I would see it on TV or if I see it if I saw it on cable or something, I absolutely had to plan my day around it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I probably will and it has been years since I have watched it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably I don't know, maybe for like another I probably feel like I need to watch it once we end here. But yeah, I'll be watching it for a little while.
Nice.
Hopefully until we go into the new year.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, it's like a security blanket. You know what you're getting into. You
Yeah.
know how it is. If it makes you at this point in 2020, if something makes you feel good and you're not harming other
Hold on
people,
to it. Yes. Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. We need all of like the joy, the enjoyment, and something that we can, that we can kind of hold on to.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that Nathaniel's like, I love that this became a 90s nostalgia show.
Yes.
He and I had that conversation the other day when I was like, oh, my back hurts, my neck hurts. And it's just like, I'm getting old, aren't I? And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah. God damn it. wasn't supposed to feel like this at 34, man.
I know. I'm 44 and I mean, I started working out again this year, so I feel a whole lot better than I did before, but still, there are some things that I'm just like, "Holy shit." Like, I don't remember feeling this when I was younger. I mean,
Yeah.
my goodness. There's a part of me that sort of feels like because I had my daughter when I was 21.
Mhm.
And so, in raising, my children, there was a certain seriousness that I had to have. So now that I'm older and they're in double digit ages now, they're all like, yeah, mom, they act like, they're like, mom, get away from me. So now I'm sort of able to reclaim a sense of my youth. And
Yeah.
that feels good, but like you said, sometimes your body is like, let me get you that reality check. Like,
You are not that age anymore.
right. Pump the brakes. You gonna need to.
It's like you might wanna think twice about what you're about to do.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you
Because you,
know.
you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. That's oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is the harsh reality of my life.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on about an hour. So usually I sort of like to sort of wrap it up with, do you have any, anything that you really wanted to talk about you didn't really get a chance to talk about, or anything any final thoughts on Lost Boys or movies in general?
I just highly recommend that if you have never seen it before and you do like the vampire genre, I highly recommend watching it at least once. I mean, I'm pretty sure that on someone's list, it's high up there.
Mhm.
And as one of the classics of all time.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend that if you are into like vampires and horror, definitely watch that one. Like I said, I purposely did not give away any spoilers because I like for people to watch it.
Right.
And I absolutely love talking with those that are in my peer group as well, and people who've seen it. And they're
Mhm.
just like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I remember that movie." It's like,
Oh, I now I really wanna watch
yes, you absolutely must.
it.
You must watch it, and let me know what you think of it too.
Yeah, and I love, just as a random aside, so, one of the dogs, Stanley, is right
Uh-huh.
there. He's sleeping, and he's currently dreaming, so he's, like, yipping in his sleep.
Oh. The movie has dogs in it too. Dogs that are featured. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
As
it's
long as
pretty.
it's not like I Am Legend where they end up having to, kill the
Nope.
dog in the
No.
statute of limitations on I Am Legend is up, so or
Oh.
spoilers.
I only saw a part of that one time, and I was just like, I mean, I respect Will Smith's craft, but he's not. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, it's like
I
there's
loved him on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love a lot of his old school hip hop.
Mhm,
When he was Fresh Prince. I mean, that
yeah,
was awesome. But yeah, like as far as the acting, I'm like, he's not one of those actors that I would just like run out to go see. And yeah, like I Am Legend, I think I saw that. I was just like, yeah, I don't know. The apocalyptic thing just kind of, I don't know.
yeah, well, and
Doesn't
it's like
kinda really
it's like
do it
with
for me too much.
vampire movies, like, there was a whole bunch of, apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic movies that came out all around the same time, and it was like, "Did I
Yes.
see this one? I don't know, it looks the same as this other one."
Right.
"Oh, shit."
Right.
Alright, so, uh, Mandisa, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. We did not we talked about Lost Boys about this much, but it has been so much fun. So,
Yes.
please give me a chance to shill and plug, and where can people find you and support you, and see what you do and everything. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, yeah, you can, if you'd like to subscribe to my Patreon, you can do that. You have to be 18 or older. You have to type in the exact link because there's adult content. You can't just find it you can't just search it. So you would have to have the link, but you can subscribe for as little as $1 per month to support. I do a lot of do a lot of blogging, do writing. There's a lot of stuff about, what I experience, in my personal life, and some things that I experience as an activist that is like, that I just don't share with the general public, but, I like to share with the people who support. So you can find me on, on the Patreon link that's posted here. And of course, with Black Nonbelievers, you can go to our website at blacknonbelievers.org. I strongly recommend that people either register to stream our 10th anniversary online, or if you feel safe enough, because it will be a safe event in person, to please register and celebrate with us in New Orleans in January. And of course, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, so we do rely on donations, and we do need support to help make this hybrid event an incredible one. And we will be video recording the sessions and throwing them up on our YouTube channel. So we just need support there as well. So if you'd like to consider that, we greatly appreciate it. I like to incorporate my love of pop culture and everything into my activism, which I think is important. And so to me, there's almost no, there's almost no difference, because I just love the fact that, we can all relate on these different levels. And so if you enjoyed this conversation, you will certainly love being a part of the activism and Black Nonbelievers, and no matter who you are. So I definitely recommend, or I ask that you support my Patreon and the organization. We're all over Facebook and YouTube and Twitter land. You can find me over there as well. So thank you once again for having me. Susan.
Thank you
this was
so
great.
much. This was so much fun. I didn't get a chance to, I think I told you this when I had initially messaged you. You and I had met at the American Atheist Convention last year.
Yeah.
That was when I was, hobbling around with my little broken ankle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was not fun, because everybody sort of had to go like, somebody's got to walk with Susan because she's sort of the straggler behind all of us.
Has anybody ever told you as well that you kind of resemble Lauren Lane from Skepticon? Are you familiar with her?
I'm not.
Okay, so you might want to look up Lauren Ann Lane. She is on, she's on Facebook. She's everywhere. She is she's the organizer for Skepticon that was taking place in Springfield, Missouri, but now it was being held. They held it online this year, but it's like their theme is always dinosaurs. Which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I highly recommend you look up. Y'all just look so y'all resemble each other. Yeah. So I think I might need to make that connection with you both.
Yes.
So
I like this. I like this
yes.
a lot. That makes
she's awesome. I just love her to pieces. And so yeah, you remind me of her too, with your mannerisms and everything. So I'm just like, do y'all know each other? Y'all need to. Like seriously.
I think I found my doppelganger, so I'm very
yes. I think so. So I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna make a post about that once we're done.
I love it. Well, Mandisa, again, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been so much fun. If anybody who is watching, listening, whatever, watching now, watching later, wants to, y'all can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. All of Mandisa's links are in the description below. I'm going to add the Patreon link in there as well. We've got a Patreon. We're patreon.com/divine disbelief. There's all sorts of other shit. We have a Discord now, which it's not very active, but still. Yeah, I'm not that fancy. But thank y'all so much for watching. We really, really appreciate it. And I hope y'all have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye. Have a good one.